Hello people, my name is Rage, and welcome and all to the next Whispers of the Old Gods card hype review discussion-y fun times, and I have to say, I am just so pleased with each and every card, on the most part, as it gets revealed. This set so far is bursting with awesome ideas and lovely design choices, and the power level seems about right, and I am pumped to start using them. I really am. I think this is definitely going to be the best expansion yet. So let's start with the ancient Harbinger, who of course is calling doom upon everyone and their mothers, especially their mothers. So this guy is going to be relatively key in an Old God deck. If he survives, you get a 10-cost minion in your hand, which in an Old God deck will be your Old God. It's really as simple as that. A 6-mana 4/6 is definitely below par on the stat curve, but honestly, unless there is another way to guarantee you get the Old God in your hand, I would say at least one of these will be played in every Old God deck, just in case your opponent can't kill it and you get your Old God. It's not a great card, it's not likely to happen, but the key thing is, it's a reliable way of getting the Old God in your hand, and you kinda got to roll the dice and play it, in my opinion, because the biggest weakness of Old God decks is not drawing the thing, which is huge. So any way to add consistency, even if it's a below curve card, I think will be important. It's not incredible, but it's not terrible. And talking of Old Gods, we have Yashari, Rage Unbound! At the end of your turn, allow a minion from your deck into the battlefield. So it's basically a kind of variant battle cry, but for only one minion at the end of each of your turns. And I have to say that while a 10-mana 10/10 is fine, it is by far the most underwhelming Old God in terms of interest, and maybe even power level, which is ironic considering that your Shiraj is the powerfulest Old God. The most powerfulest. Is powerfulest even a word? I'm not actually 100% on that. I feel like that's one of those things. Either way, it's disappointing. It's not horrible, but it's disappointing, especially when you pull a 1-mana Lepidome from your deck onto the field and then you just get really depressed. I mean, granted, not that you should have a Lepidome in a deck that runs your Shiraj, but still, it's got a lot of chance to go horribly wrong. It's not that immediately impactful, and honestly, it's definitely the worst Old God so far. I mean, it looks really cool, but I'm very disappointed. But talking of Old Gods, we have the Scarum. Obviously, it's a Scarum. What are you talking about? It's absolutely easily a Scarum cultist. Everybody knows that that's a Scarum. What are you, a biology noob? A 6-mana 7/6, which honestly is fine, because it gives you a late-game body that continues to power up your Cthulhu, and that's, exactly what you need in a Cthulhu deck. This card is fine. It'll probably be played in a Cthulhu deck, because a Cthulhu deck is likely to be a big, meaty, control-y deck with a lot of big minions and survivability, and a Scarum cultist fits into that. It's not incredible, honestly, it's really not, but it's something just to throw down in the later game that does have to be dealt with. Yeah, it gets big game hunted, but there are much worse things to get big game hunted in your given Cthulhu deck. So I like this, it works, it's not ridiculous, but it's a good support for Cthulhu. Next up we have the Cult Heal Bot. It is a battle cry for each enemy minion, restore 2 health to your hero. So a 5-mana heal your hero card. Nowhere near as good as the Heal Bot, but it's okay. I mean, it's got a little bit of better stats, but even in an average situation, which is 2-3 minions on your opponent's side, you get a 4/4 plus a heal for 4 or 6. It's not gonna stop you dying horribly, is it? It's not really that good of a card. There are better healing options. It's really probably one of the worst cards revealed so far. I mean, unless you're facing a deck that spams the board and you get like a 14 heal of 7 minions, but even then, your opponent's got 7 minions on the board and you just played your entire turn to heal 14 and play a 4/4. Yeah, you might live an extra turn, but it does nothing in the ways of giving you back control of the game, which granted Healbot wouldn't do in that situation either, but the simple fact of this card is, it's a worse Healbot when you want a card to heal. And granted, you can't play Healbot anymore, so maybe by virtue of there being no other option, you play Cult Apothecary, but at the same time, it's just quite bad. Next up, we have Mukla, Tyrant of the Vale, and it's not bad. It's the opposite of Mukla, because Mukla you pay cheap mana for a negative battle cry, whereas with this Mukla you play more expensive mana for a positive battle cry. So effectively you get a 7/7 worth of stats for 6 mana, which is technically below curve, but obviously it's spread into 2 spells in your hand, and that's not that great because you probably can't immediately play them, because you're probably playing this around turn 5 of a coin, 6 or 7. The only situation I can see this being fantastic in is if you're playing Rogue and you want more cheap spells to fire off, something miracle-y, because otherwise there is just better 6-drops. Sylvanas immediately comes to mind as just a lot more effective than Mukla as a general slam down, boom, legendary, and I really wish I was monkeying around, but that is just the truth. Sorry, Mukla! Next up then, we have the Scaled Nightmare, and I kind of like this card, and I realize I'm very quickly going over each one because we have a lot of cards to look at, and as I keep saying, until we see how the meta shapes, it's only really worth doing a cursory prediction because you've got to allow for what the meta might become, not what it currently is. That's a big distinction to be made when evaluating cards, but either way, the Scaled Nightmare, a new dragon joining the fray, and it's a 2/8, and that's not that good for 6 mana. Granted, it would be, what, a 4/6 if we try and even it out a little bit more, which is still bad. It would be a 5/5, so, you know, it's not great, but it's not horrific, and 8 health does mean it's likely to stick around. So outside of being Shadow Word pained or stolen by a priest, the 2 attack isn't horrific to have to deal with for a turn, because at the start of your turn, you get to double its attack consistently, so if you stealth it, that's pretty nice, but then again, stealthing this, is that really that good? Wouldn't you rather stealth other 6 mana cards? Maybe an Auctioneer, maybe, hell, even your Sylvanas so you can guarantee the trade next turn and get a good steal. I just think, unless you are running a dragon deck and just need filler dragons to make it more consistent to replace the ones where... In fact, no, we're not losing any dragons, are we? We've still got Blackrock. So even then, I'm not sure. It's not a bad card, but is it a good enough dragon to be a staple in dragon decks? That's the question we have to ask. And currently, I'm on the fence about that. I really am. I do think it looks cool, but, you know, it's the kind of card that makes you go, And then we move on to the revealed class cards. We got the Cabalist Tome. Add 3 random mage spells to your hand for 5 mana. This card is pretty good. It massively increases your card advantage. Mage spells on average are very good, probably the best class to draw random spells from, and you have a chance of getting your Cabalist Tome back when you play Cabalist Tome, which is quite amusing. I can't wait for the trolled video of someone playing Cabalist Tome and getting 3 Cabalist Tomes, because let's be honest, it's going to happen. But either way, in a slower, controllier mage deck, this can give you some serious advantages that you need. Any way to draw cards not from your deck is very good, and while your average random card is worse than the average card you've chosen for your deck, in a random mage spell case, it's not by much, and in a lot of situations, you are definitely going to get something that helps you out of your current situation. So I think this card is very nice. You can't play it in Tempo Mage because it's too expensive and does nothing when you initially play it, but in a controllier, slowy mage, maybe even Frost Mage, this gives you a lot of options and a lot of bang for your buck, and I'm very happy with this card, and I'm excited to actually play it myself. Next up then, we have a Druid, Mark of Yasharaj. Give a minion +2, if it's a beast, draw a card. This is really good. Like, genuinely, this really increases Beast Druid viability. Whether it increases it enough to make it a viable deck, we don't know. We've not seen the rest of the Druid cards, but I like it. Let's assume you're playing it on a Beast, because let's be honest, why else would you be running this card? A +2/+2 that then cycles itself? That's really, really strong. Like, genuinely, so much better than Mark of the Wild, because the taunt just isn't that valuable. It's a kind of a slow card, and a lot of the situation isn't going to make a big difference, but just being able to throw this out there, get a nice buff on one of your minions, and then get to cycle into a new card, that's really solid. It's just good. And if Beast Druid is a thing, 2 of these will be in every Beast Druid. That's how good I think this card is. It will be a staple of a Beast Druid archetype. All that remains to be seen is if Beast Druid becomes good, if other cards get revealed that support it. So there we have it. Tentacle the fuck out of your bears, and you're gonna have a good time. Yeah, I said that. And next up then, Shaman allowed multiple good cards in an expansion. Praise be to all of Hearthstone. Praise be to the laugh of the broad, because this is incredible. So I present to you the Master of Evolution, which is a cool card name, and it also looks very nice. So at its base, it's a Yeti, which is fine, in line with the kind of power level we'll expect to see in Standard. But then its battle cry, transform a minion into a random one that costs 1 more, is really powerful on average. Yeah, you'll get situations where you turn your totem into a Doomsayer, but on the most part, you'll be playing this on turn 4, converting your Tuskar Totemic or your Hero Power Totem, getting a solid 2 or 4 drop, and just really increasing your mid-range potential, and it makes me very excited for Shaman, because I love Shaman as a class, and I love playing Control Shaman. It is by far and away my favorite way to play Hearthstone, but it's just been so bad for so long. And while this does lend itself more to mid-range than Control, I definitely think it can help bridge the gap and get you into late game. It's just a very good card, and honestly, unless your deck is a very specific sort of Wind Fury aggro rushdown, which, you know, totally is going to be a thing, then you're going to just be putting these in your Shaman deck, because it's just such a solidly good card to have, and you're never really going to be upset to play it, because even without the battle cry, it's fine. And talking of fine, the next Shaman card, the Thing from Below. Again, a really nice looking card with a cool name. A 6-mana 5/5 taunt, which isn't horrific for 6 mana by itself. It's not good. I mean, if you look at, say, Stranglethorn Tiger, which is a 5/5, it gets Stealth, which isn't as valuable as Taunt, but still, for 5 mana, it's nearly there. However, it costs 1 less for each totem you've summoned. So you only need to summon 1 totem turns 1 through 4 to play a 5-mana 5/5 taunt without overload, by the way. Neither of these cards are steeped in stupid massive overload, which is so nice. And then you have a really powerful mid-game wall for your opponent to go through. This, coupled with the new legendary and healing, really gives Shaman that staying power and survivability that's really prevented it being a very strong mid-range and control deck at the moment. And this thing really helps. Like, say your turn 2 is a hero power, your turn 3 is a Tuskar Totemic, and then your turn 4 is a 4-mana 5/5 taunt. Yes, please. And then what? You play Master of Evolution the turn after and get a random 7 drop if you've, like, traded with the Thing from Below. That is really good. I'm excited for this card. It is nut strong and will make a lot of appearances in Shaman decks. I am so pumped to be playing Shaman again in this expansion. And then next up we have, well, Ragnaros Lightlord. So this caused a little bit of a stir, because obviously it breaks the law quite hard, but at the same time, it doesn't, because what Hearthstone is, the canon of Hearthstone, is that it is being created by members of Azeroth, people living in Azeroth to play in their spare time. People who live in Azeroth are making Hearthstone, so you could easily see people making a parody spoof card of a feared elemental lord just for giggles. Of course you could, it's not really a big deal. Just like in real life, you could make a parody spoof card of someone that we know. It really doesn't matter, and actually it's a pretty good card. 8 mana 8/8 is fine. It can attack, unlike normal Ragnaros, which is good, and then you get a guaranteed +8 health when you play it. This is the kind of card you will probably play when you don't have anything else on the board, so you'll probably be getting that 8 health to your hero, which makes it just fantastic. Whether it's actually better than normal Ragnaros, I do think in some situations it actually is, but it's just very meaty for what you're getting. It's like a much better Guardian of Kings, and Guardian of Kings has seen some kind of play, so really, I like this card. I think the fact that Ragnaros is now a Lightlord is amusing, and I think this will definitely be seen in slower controlier Paladins, because it's just very good to just slam down. You get the health back, and you've got a meaty minion for your opponent to deal with. It's fine, it's good, and I do like it. Next up, we have the Priest, Shadow Word, Horror. Destroy all minions with 2 or less attack. This is pretty damn good, because it's like Hellfire in that it destroys all your opponent's swarmy, crappy minions. Granted, it doesn't destroy the ones with above 2 attack, whereas Hellfire would, because they're likely to have 3 or less health, but for the most part, they can be seen as quite comparable cards, and it's really useful. It doesn't affect your board, which is a major deal when it comes to this, and I think it'll be a very good tool at dealing with spammy aggro decks for a priest 1 turn earlier than a Holy Nova might be helpful. It's not amazing, but it's certainly a useful tool, and I can see one of these being plopped into priest decks if there are a fair number of early game aggression cheap minion aggro decks running around, which there generally tends to be. So yeah, I do like it, especially with us losing sticky early minions like Haunted Creeper. It makes this card a lot more appealing to play, because you aren't just giving your opponent a new board when their current one dies, so I do like it. And the idea of Murlocs being sucked into a black hole is always kind of fun. So back to Paladin then. I don't know why Priest just snuck in there, but I guess it did. We have the Steward of Darkshire. Whenever you summon a 1 health minion, give it Divine Shield. So it's basically a health hobgoblin, but instead of a stat boost, you get a Divine Shield. 3 mana free is okay, not amazing, but it's okay. And the effect is kind of fine, but I mean, Magma Rager now playable, right? It's just, is it good enough? Like, are there that many 1 health minions that you're desperate to play but can't, but now that they might get Divine Shield on turn 4, they're suddenly great? I'm not entirely sure there is, so while I think the card is interesting and I kind of like it, it's just, it seems underwhelming. I mean, I could be wrong, I could be missing something, I'm not remembering certain cards, but it just seems not good enough to build a deck around, which you really need to when this kind of specific effect comes into play. So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, yes, it might also apply to your tokens from your hero power, so maybe it just gets put in for the sake of it to make them more annoying. Maybe it supports token Paladin. Hell, maybe if you play the one that summons 5/1/1s, this gives them all Divine Shield. That could be kind of annoying, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays up. This is one of these cards that's either never going to see play, or is the core part of a retardedly annoying deck. Much like what people were predicting about Mysterious Challenger before it actually turned into the awfulness that it currently is. God damn you, Secret Paladin! And then finally, we have something that makes me very bitter and very salty. The Vilefin Inquisitor. Why does Paladin get this card? This should be a Shaman card. This is the exact Murloc card that Shaman needs to be a viable Murloc deck, because totems do nothing for Murloc decks, and being able to play this on turn 1, get a good Murloc hero power, open with a 1/3, it would be lovely, but no fucking Paladins get it, and it's a great card. It's a ridiculously good card. It's a you play 2 of it if you're playing a Murloc deck card. But I want it for Shaman so bad, I really do, because the thing is, it might not even be good enough to make Paladin pure Murloc a thing, whereas this would certainly be good enough to make pure Shaman Murloc a thing, but I digress. It's fine, it's good, I just think they missed a trick by not giving it to Shaman, I really do. So there you go, guys. That is the current roundup of cards. Let me know what you are thinking. Anything that I have not pointed out that you think is really relevant or cool about a card, let me know. Let's get the discussions going on. And yeah, see, this video for me is basically just, here are the new cards. Aren't they cool? With just a little bit of theory behind them. So, you know, it's basically a news video keeping you guys up to date with the new cards with a little bit of bonus discussion. So I think that's kind of nice, but either way, I will see you next time. Like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more. Oh, goodbye.